we know from surveys that have been done that like something like 68% of people admit to hiding financial concerns from their employers.
I wouldn't be surprised about that.
To get the state pension, to get the full state pension, you need 35 years of national insurance contributions.
35 years.
Why is that a great thing? Well, your employer is giving you free money. Yep. So they're saying, you put in 100 quid, I'll put in 100 quid. Right? Why would you turn down that free money? Is my first question.
Welcome to the Takeoff Experience, where I sit down with highly driven people to talk about their journey, their failures, and their successes. If you want to take off in your career, your business, your finances, or your mindset, then this podcast is for you. This episode is sponsored by Moneyhub, a platform that allows you to see all of your current accounts in one place and also provides you with smart money management tools to help you get right with your money. All right, welcome back to the Takeoff podcast. So we've got a very, very special guest. We've got Carla in the building. She is founder of a company called Wealthbrite. How are you doing today, Carla?
I'm good, thanks. I'm really good. Thanks. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. As you can tell, I don't know if I'm losing my voice. I had it yesterday, so I don't know what's going on today. I haven't even really been speaking today, so I'm not sure what's going on. How was work? You worked today?
Today was a work for myself and work for Wealthbrite day.
Okay,
so
cool.
Yeah, it was good. I was reviewing some video and some podcasts that I've shot recently.
Okay.
Sending that off for editing, looking at sort of pipeline in terms of future customers and clients that I'm going to work with, talking to people about what we're doing.
Wow.
Taking financial education into the workplace. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So just trying to line up things for the next sort of 6 months or so.
Awesome. Yeah. And we're going to talk a bit more about what you're doing there. But before that, can you tell us who Carla is?
Who's Carla? Great question. I would probably tell you that Carla, well, you can probably tell by the accent, grew up in Northern Ireland, but actually that's not the full story. So Carla is someone who loves running, comes from a big family, eldest of 4 children, and now I've been living in London actually for longer than I've lived anywhere else my entire life, which is kind of crazy to say.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
Came here for uni, never looked back.
Wow, one of those ones.
Yeah,
wow,
one of those ones. But yeah, so that's me and what I'm up to now.
Okay, wow. And other places, where else have you lived in the world?
Yeah, so my family have traveled all around the world.
Okay.
So I actually was born in Canada.
Canada, nice.
Yeah,
nice.
So born in Canada, we've lived in the Falkland Islands for 5 years. So
wow.
That's like right off the tip of South America.
Wow.
My dad, he does work in science and climate change, and we lived there when the hole in the ozone layer was above the Falklands. So he was actually looking at the effects of climate change.
That is so interesting.
On like food production and animal welfare. So yeah, we did that for a while, which is kind of crazy, but cool.
Wow, that is so interesting. You must have seen a lot and experienced a lot, especially at a young age as well.
Yeah, it was a totally different experience, and nothing really can prepare you for the idea of what it's like. It's a tiny subset of islands. I think there's about 1,000 civilians that live on the island, so really small population.
1,000.
It's so tiny. There are more military than civilian, but and then definitely more sheep than people.
Wow.
Yeah, but it was like living in an episode of Blue Planet, because
oh my gosh,
we had so much wildlife around us and stuff like that. So I was lucky, even though you would think like, no cinema, no fast food, opened a swimming pool about 3 months before we left.
Wow.
Tiny school. But I loved it. It was really an amazing experience.
That's crazy.
So,
Must have been big on community. And I was going to ask you, did everybody seem to know each other?
Oh yeah,
there?
Definitely.
Wow.
Yeah, it was kind of impossible not to.
Yeah.
So, you're absolutely right. Community is huge there, obviously, with it being such a small location.
Yeah.
But actually, that's a big part of what my family is all about anyway. My parents are both from sort of communities and backgrounds where, that was a really strong part of their identity.
Okay.
My mum, his mother's Dutch, father's Indian.
Okay.
My dad was grew up in Liverpool, but his family were Polish and Irish. So we're a real mix of cultures. And
that's nice.
but all of that kind of came together into this really, really strong family unit. So kind of had to be when you were out there by yourself. But, but no, it's good. It's good.
Wow. What a story. That is brilliant. I wanted to then give us a bit of a day in insight into the life of Carla.
Yeah, well, like I said, it kind of varies quite a lot. So Wealthbrite, I founded Wealthbrite back end of last year, so 2021. But actually before that, I worked in financial services as a tax advisor for quite a long time now. Actually, even before that, I was a corporate lawyer. So I actually...
Wow, you were a lawyer. Okay.
I'm a lawyer by trade.
Did you study law?
I did.
Okay, me too.
Went to uni to study law.
Wow.
Thought I was going to live the big corporate life. Kind of like wanted to, because I was thinking, my family background, for the most part, my dad was a single earner, family of 4 children. We didn't have a lot of money going around.
Okay.
My dad works for the civil service. So, was kind of an environment where we were not ever like really, really struggling, but there was not a lot of extra money to go around. So I kind of went into school and university with almost like a mindset of I needed to put myself in a situation where I was going to be able to do better than what my parents had done.
Yeah.
And law was like kind of this idea to me that this was going to help me reach all my financial goals in life, which at the time, probably when I think about it now and I look back, it was like, well, basically make a load of money and have nice clothes and live in a nice place.
Wow.
But the reality of it was I could tell the story in a bit more detail. It took me a while to get into my kind of desired career.
Okay.
And then when I did, I found out that actually it wasn't really for me in the long term.
Yeah.
So I switched around careers and did a few different things. And then, and it's kind of taken me now to the stage where I spent a long time in the professional services environment, learned loads of great skills, but actually want to go out and do something of my own and kind of make it something that I could stand up and be proud of, which is Wealthbrite.
Yeah.
But I don't do that full time yet. So I'm also still working part time because, got to pay the bills.
Yes, exactly.
Mounting bills.
They don't stop, do they? Right? No matter what you want to do, the bills they're just like clockwork. Come out at the same time every month. It's crazy.
Yeah, so I'm still working part-time.
Okay.
I work as the head of tax for a AI technology company.
AI technology. That's interesting.
Pretty sort of intense, very amazing.
Yeah.
Far too complicated for me to tell you actually how it works. But they're a really fascinating group. And so I do that 3 days a week. So you asked me what my day looks like. Could change radically from day to day, depending on which of my hats I've put on.
Wow. And how do you balance that? Like at the moment, is it difficult? Is it easy for you to do that?
Do you know what? I have my good days and bad days. Sometimes I think, this is like, working for yourself and trying to build your own thing it's a privilege to be able to do that.
That is, it is. Yeah.
And I really love it. I love what I'm doing, but it is tough. I think if you ever sit down with other founders and you really get them to talk honestly about it, they'll tell you that it's really hard work. There's a lot of people grafting all the time, 7 days a week. And so, it can be a bit of a challenge to find balance and find time to make time for yourself to recharge and relax, which is, why long bank holidays like the one we've just had are so great.
Yes.
Everybody's off work. Yes. Nobody's expecting you to be writing emails and you can just chill.
Yeah. It's crazy. I was going to ask you, do you find it hard to switch off at times as well? Because you're doing both.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I'm really bad for it. But I've always been like that.
Okay.
That's kind of part of my personality.
Yeah.
I was going to say my boyfriend, but we got engaged recently. So my
congratulations.
Fiance, thank you.
Yeah, I noticed. Yeah.
He calls me, he says, I'm not a human being. I'm a human doing. Because I'm always on the go.
I love that.
So I would say the way I try and factor in some downtime is to do activities that for me take my brain off whatever I've been focusing on. So cycling or running or swimming or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's epic. Yeah. I mean, it's needed. I think it becomes really tough because I guess as like, you know, starting your own company, there's always something to do on the to-do list. There's always something. And you can't do everything one day.
No.
You're always thinking about the next thing. And when you complete it, what do we do next? Let's hit this goal. It can be quite intense. I want to go back. Why did you start Wealthbrite?
Yeah, great question. So here's the thing. I went into my job, you know, from having been in, you know, good schools, you know, being taught really great things. But I went into my job with absolutely no formal education around how to manage my money. So, you know, what happened, day one of uni, I remember standing in line to collect my student ID.
Okay. Yeah.
And my freshers week, they had, you know, all these people coming to like set up stalls to basically tell you about what student life was going to be like. One of them was a high street bank. That was basically signing people up to open an account with their bank. And the first thing they did was give me a £2,000 overdraft. Now, I will admit it, I didn't manage my money well whenever I was young because I didn't really understand the consequences of the choices I was making. And, you know, and I've personally lived through, you know, being in a situation where I've been getting paid in work and only filling that overdraft up back to zero, or even maybe not back to zero.
Yeah,
and what that's
it's crazy,
like.
right? It's like a little game.
I'm trying to get out
from
under that while you're still paying a student loan off, and you know, huge student debts coming out of uni. And then obviously, as I did go into law, I took the LPC, and I self-funded that.
Wow, you self-funded
because I didn't get a training contract when I came out of university.
Of course, yes. Oh, yeah.
So I took the decision to kind of invest in myself, which long term, I think that was the right choice for me to make. Yeah. But it meant that I was and because I, you know, had this idea in my mind that, you know, London was the place for me to be. You know, I moved myself back from Northern Ireland, having worked, you know, doing some training in Northern Ireland for a couple of law firms as a paralegal and a legal secretary. Yeah. I basically took the money that I'd earned, which I wasn't able to save an awful lot because I wasn't getting paid very much. But I came back to London, had to pay rent here and self-fund the LPC.
Oh my gosh.
I came out of all of that with, I think I had about 50 grand of debt.
Wow.
Yeah. Between student loans and personal loans.
Wow.
So, you know, and it took me a long time to get not just out from underneath that debt, but also the confidence to understand what I was doing with my money. And really what I observed was like no one was teaching you this stuff. Nobody in work was teaching me this stuff. Frankly, not a lot of my friends and I would talk about money. So we weren't learning from each other. And it was kind of just like, you have to learn by osmosis, you know, somehow you were going to magically pick it up. I remember seeing one guy in my work, kind of like the epitome of what I imagined a corporate lawyer would be. But he used to show up in his suits every day with his like briefcase. Yeah. And he'd sit and read the Financial Times. And I just was like, I didn't understand it. Yeah. Like I found it really hard to like get why someone would want to read a business paper like that. Or, you know, at the beginning, this is the beginning of my career when I'm like super young and naive and not really understanding. Anyway, long story short, I just basically figured that enough is enough of this. Like someone has to do something to change that story, because the fact is we still don't have financial education in school.
Yep, still don't. Yep,
still not standard.
It's not standard. I think some school. Well, when I say some, we're talking about private, where they pay where you pay. I think they're the only ones that get it. I think. Yeah.
And I know some schools do have teachers who actually are really passionate about the subject, so they will incorporate some lessons in their, you know, in what they're teaching. But the problem is that, first of all, that's down to the goodwill of the teacher and the individual. It's down to their own personal interest. And it's not there for reaching all of the students. It's only reaching the students that teacher happens to interact with. Yeah. So, unfortunately, I don't think that is going to change anytime soon.
Probably not, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my solution when I was looking at the problem, and this is something I've been really passionate about throughout my career, education and helping young people succeed in work. I used to do a lot of work around that whenever I was in work. But I basically said, okay, well, how do we fix this problem? And, there's been a lot of instances where business has said, well, we're not getting the right skills from the graduates coming through, or we don't think they're giving us the right talent. And what's happened is business has stepped in to provide that education. So I kind of just took the same approach with financial education and said, okay, Wealthbrite is going to set up a business where we go to employers and we tell them about why they need to be investing in the education of their people. And that's because money is the number one cause of mental health problems. We know from surveys that have been done that something like 68% of people admit to hiding financial concerns from their employers.
I wouldn't be surprised about that.
Right?
Right?
And the other thing I think that's really important for people to be aware of is that, of course, when you don't understand how to manage your money, you may be tempted to look over the fence, as it were, and think grass is greener on the other side in a different job. And what you may not have taken into account is the value of some of your workplace benefits. Yeah. So big example for that. I know lots of people who have switched jobs because they're like, hey, they're going to pay me more salary. And that might be the case, right? They might get a pay rise. But when they've looked at the fine details of things like your pension. Yeah. So they've gone from an environment where that one employer was matching and contributing up to 10%. Wow. Which is a huge contribution. Right? Yeah. Huge contribution. And then they found themselves in the new job where actually the employer is only matching a much lower percentage. Now, I'm not saying don't move for a bigger pay rise, right? But I do think it's important for people to understand the full financial package that they're getting at work, because that's what basically sets the benchmark for our financial well-being. So that's what we're doing. We're going into the workplace. We're teaching people how to understand your pay slip. How much tax should I be paying? Yeah. Am I paying the right amount? What do I do if I'm not? How does my pension work? How do I actively save for my future? Yeah. All that good stuff. And then sort of incorporating in bigger questions like, things like planning for a family and how to think about your finances in that context, retirement, home buying, you name it. Yeah. So much there, right? So and there's no education. Can you imagine? I know, it's crazy, it's right? Mad. Crazy. When you think about it, even providing the education, there's so much to provide. There's so many facets of it. What you're doing is amazing. I definitely want to hear more about it in the future as well. Yeah. And you mentioned something there that we wanted to discuss today, pensions, right? But for me, pensions, I just never really took them seriously, if I'm being honest. That's just the truth. I have to be honest, right? Even the whole matching or anything, I didn't really see it as a big deal. Yeah. Obviously now getting into the space, wow, you're like, wow, this is a really, really big deal. But before we deep dive into it, what is a pension for those that don't know? If they don't know, if they're living under a rock. But hey, no, I think it's an important point, right? Yeah. First of all, the thing to know about a pension is it's basically an investment. Yeah. So if you are putting money into a pension, you are an investor. Yes. You are investing in the stocks and the shares market. Yeah. So a lot of people might not think of themselves as investors, and they might think, oh, well, I don't invest. Well, you do if you're putting money in your pension. So that's the first thing to say. Yeah. Your pension is just a wrapper for those investments. The model of pensions is basically put money in now, watch it grow, the long-term plan, long-term investment plan. And the idea is that when you get to retirement age, you can basically cash out some of that money for your future living needs. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, great explanation. And there's so many. Okay, I don't want to say there's so many. I think there's different types of pensions. So if we talk through the most common ones, state. Does everybody get a state pension? Great question. Yeah. So to get a state pension, there are a few conditions. Okay. You got to be living in the UK. Okay. And you've got to have paid national insurance contributions. Okay. So this is a really important condition, right?
Okay.
So to get the state pension, to get the full state pension, you need 35 years of national insurance contributions.
35 years. Okay. So I'm just going to stop you right there, just very quickly, because I just thought of something. Contracting. A lot of people contract and they don't even know this. So if you're contracting into your 30s, you're already losing.
This is the thing, right?
Okay.
So
that's crazy.
when I went sort of part-time and started freelancing, this happened to me my first year. I didn't make a load of money. And because I had a split year, so I was basically in employment for half the year and 6 months working as a freelancer. So my 6 months as a freelancer is self-employed income. It was beneath the threshold at which national insurance contributions are paid by self-employed people. So a lot of people will go, happy days, one less tax to pay. I don't have to pay that. What they don't realize is they're missing out on basically a year's tick against your name for contributions.
That's all it takes
to state pension.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, it is a curious thing. I talked about this a little bit on a podcast I did with Emily Ballet at Vestpod.
Okay.
But basically, for some people who are freelancers and self-employed people, it's really important to look at your national insurance history. And you may, I'm not saying everybody will, but you may want to basically make a top-up contribution. It's possible to do that in order to build up a credit.
Okay.
Now, I would just pause before first of all, this isn't financial advice. We're not making any formal recommendations to anyone. But I think there's a couple of things I would start to bear in mind. Number one, how important is the state pension to you?
Yep.
I think that's a really big question people have to ask themselves. And I think to be able to answer that question, you have to know how much the state pension is and when you're going to get it. So first things, right now, it's worth 9,600 and some pounds. Total.
Okay. That's not a lot.
Per year, right? Per year. So you're getting that amount per year. Okay. You're not going to get it. Well, I'm not going to get it until I'm 68.
Okay.
That's probably going to go up for people who are younger than me.
Yeah.
I'm, in my late 30s. So
you might just keep putting it up to your 80 or something. We don't know. That's the problem,
it's probably
right?
going to go up again. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes up to 70 for some people who are in their sort of late teens, early 20s, right? So then I think you have to ask yourself, how much is that £9,500 a year valued to you? Is, are you reliant on the state pension? If the answer is yes, then you need to make sure you're looking at how much national insurance you've paid and, talk to HMRC if you haven't got enough years, right? If you decide, do you know what? I don't think I need it, or I'm happy receiving less, because just to clarify, you need 35 years for the full state pension. If you have fewer numbers of years of payments, you get less.
Okay.
But obviously it comes right down depending on how many years you've had paid. Wow. Yeah. Okay. So if you decide, actually, state pension isn't that valuable to me, I'm going to sort it out myself, then you need to be paying a lot of attention to the other two types of pensions that you were going to mention. So workplace pensions and SIPs, which is the self-invested pension.
Okay.
So yeah, it's I feel like I've scared you a wee bit there.
Yeah, with not for me, I'm fine, but it's just like, I know contracting is a big thing. Contracts has been a big thing throughout my whole career. Like a lot of people say they're contracting, but I think a lot of people don't look at they get the high income if they're fortunate to do 6 months a year, but then they don't really look at what they're losing out in terms of for sacrificing for that income, pension. You've mentioned NI, there's probably other, benefits that they can get as well. And I think a lot of people don't realize. I certainly did not think, I wanted to pay as little tax as possible. Let me just be honest, right?
And
I didn't want to pay national insurance.
And that's absolutely fine. It's just, you've got to be aware of what that means for you in the long term. And then again, as I say, look, pensions are a means of investing for your future. It's not the only way to plan for your future. I think investing in a pension, particularly if you're in employment, is an amazing way to save for your future. Yeah. Because we'll go on to tell you all the great things you get. Yeah. But I think, for your people who are self-employed or freelancing, you really need to, I guess the thing I would tell people is working to get that higher income today is great.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's just all about having that long-term view.
Yeah.
What are you going to do in 5, 10, 20 years time,
Mm-hmm.
right? What kind of lifestyle do you want to have?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I tell people when I talk to them about pensions, right? I say, hey,
yeah,
what kind of lifestyle do you imagine for yourself?
Mm-hmm.
When do you want to retire?
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you what, I want to retire a hell of a lot earlier than 68.
Me too. I don't want to wait until 68. I can't imagine it.
Right. So if that's your goal, and you might fancy some holidays,
Mm-hmm.
or, you just want to be able to not worry about money,
Mm-hmm.
then I think, starting to give it some thought and say, okay, well, what does that actually mean in terms of monetary value? Like, what's your ambition? Do you want to have 20,000 a year in income? And remember, you've got to think about it is post-tax income. So after you've paid all your taxes, how much do you want to have left over?
Yeah.
Is it 20K a year? Is it 30K a year? Whatever, 40, 50? What's your number?
Yeah.
Work that out.
Mm-hmm.
And then work out, okay, well, to give me that much per year, what's my total that I have to save?
Yeah.
And like, there's plenty of online pension calculators, great stuff out there, where you can just plug these numbers in and you can say, look, this is how much I want to have. This is what age I want to retire. And it will tell you how much you can save per month. And it will tell you, will you reach your goal? And if it doesn't reach your goal, what do you have to do to change?
Yeah.
So I think this is a great thing for people to start doing as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Because if you leave it until, your 40s or maybe even later, it's probably going to be a wee bit too late to get to that goal.
Yeah, that's the problem. I think a lot of people feel like they have time and they're sort of missing the ball. So I wanted to understand as well from your point of view, company pension. Can you explain what that is and how that's different to a state pension?
Yeah. So, okay. So the state pension, you get that from the government, and basically it's sort of explained, it's kind of mapped against your eligibility based on the amount of tax you've paid under national insurance. Workplace pensions, that's a totally different investment pot. So most employers use what's known as a salary sacrifice pension. So things you need to know about this. If you're over 22, 22 and over, I should say, and you're earning more than £10,000 and you're in work, your employer will automatically enroll you into a pension.
Okay.
So you'll be told, we've enrolled you. And in the UK, most employers have to match by 3%. So if you put 3% into your pot, so that's 3% of your annual salary, which isn't a huge amount of money, by the way. But if you put in 3%, your employer will put 3% in as well.
Okay.
Why is that a great thing? Well, your employer is giving you free money. Yep. So they're saying, you put in 100 quid, I'll put in 100 quid. Right? Why would you turn down that free money? Is my first question. The other thing that's amazing about a salary sacrifice pension is what's it done? So it's saying, okay, well, let's imagine you were due to get your pay, and your pay net after tax is maybe 2.5 grand. Let's say you're taking home 2.5 grand after tax. So what you're doing by sacrificing some of that salary into your pension is you're saying, I don't want you to give me that salary now. I'm going to put it into my pension. So that's great. So let's imagine you've decided to sacrifice that £100 in. So you would have paid tax at 20% on that £100. Yeah. What the government does, if you decide to put into your pension, is they say, well, okay, that 20 quid you would have given us, we'll put it in your pension.
Okay. Wow.
So now you've got, I'm putting in 100, my employer's putting in 100, and the government's put in 20.
Okay.
So I've more than doubled my money.
Wow.
Yeah. And for some employers, they go even further because employers, it's not just income tax that you would have paid on it. You would have paid national insurance. And employers pay national insurance as well.
Okay.
And I know a lot of employers say, we won't just put the 20 quid of income tax that you would have paid in. We'll also put in the amount that you would have paid in national insurance contributions and that we would have paid in national insurance contributions.
A lot of benefits.
So all of a sudden you see your £100 has gone up loads more than what it was originally.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about that is again, this comes back to long-term investment plans. But even if it's just 100 quid that you're giving up from your pocket today, it's actually not 100 quid you've given up. It's actually 80 quid, right? You would have paid.
True.
You would have paid 20 in tax.
Yeah.
So you've only given up 80 quid and you've gotten back nearly more than double that.
Yeah.
So it's a great way to kind of boost your investment in your retirement savings.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I mean, I always say this to people when I'm talking to them about pensions and workplace pensions. You're leaving free money on the table if you don't take them up. That's just the bottom line of it. Now, some people might say to us right now, the cost of living crisis, like I don't even know if I can give up that 80 quid, right? Yeah. It's just really too tough for me. And to those people, I'd say, like, okay, if that's your situation, then I get it. You can opt out of your pension. I would encourage people to try to stay opted in, maybe reduce the amount they're putting in if they can, if that's one thing to do, if they're struggling, right? And then the other thing I would say is, like, it's okay if during your career, maybe you did opt out and actually now you're listening to this thinking, gosh, maybe I should be in, right? You can go back in and you can start taking that action, because I think the thing for people to realize is that, why is it important to think about these things now? Well, because number one, you're getting that free money, and number two, compound interest is your friend. Right? The longer you invest, the more you will see the benefits of compounding interest on the value of your investment. So, these are really great reasons why a workplace pension is such a valuable asset and such a valuable benefit. When you think about what you're getting from your workplace, kind of paying benefits.
Yeah. It's crazy because I think when we go for jobs, we rarely look at pension as a great benefit. But with your explanation, it seems like it's a no-brainer to invest in your pension.
Yeah, absolutely. But here, it's not just like, I think about it in two ways. You're absolutely right. Most people don't look at pensions when they're looking at what's this total package and how valuable is it to me. But equally, businesses aren't out there shouting about the fact that,
that's true,
hey, we've got this awesome pension plan. This is all the extra benefit you would get from being part of our workplace, and why we think we're a really great place for you and your future financial well-being. And that's the narrative that I'm trying to encourage businesses to adopt through Wealthbrite. So we're saying to them, like, it's a great resignation at the minute. There's a war on talent. You want to find great people? Start shouting about some of this stuff.
That's very true.
Start telling people about the great benefits that you're giving them and why you're investing in them, not just today, but in their future financial well-being as well. Because that's also partly how we help other people understand why this is so important, right?
It's very, very true. I don't want to blame all employers, but I don't think they do a good job of explaining, this is the pension you get. This is the salary we're going to give you. This is how much you can end up getting at a year. This is how much you can get if you stay with us for 10 years. If they explain that, maybe they would have more people staying with them, but they don't, right? It's up to us to figure it out. Or, I mean, I get my Standard Life now. So I've got a pension provider. Both of them are with the same company. I'm having to go through it myself and merge it. And I think you're kind of left to your own devices a little bit. I know a bit more about it. So which is why I'm proactive with it, combining all my pension pots into one, making sure that I've checked to see how much I need. I mean, I had a scare actually when I was working at my previous company. I was like, wow, I'm not going to make enough. I need to contribute more. I need to contribute way more. I'm not going to make enough. And I'm not like, I think at the time I was, 30 or 31.
Right.
Yeah, 30, 31. I was like, I still won't be able to to even match my salary now. I'd have to invest much more. So yeah, it's crazy. What if I told you that there was a platform that allows you to see how you're spending all of your money across all of your accounts, especially at a time where the cost of living is at its highest that it's been in years. What if I also told you that this platform also allows you to see how much income you are getting every month across all of your accounts, as well as helping you to set budgets for all of your expenses? It doesn't stop there though. This platform also helps you to send a record of your rent payments to Experian so that it is recorded on your credit report, which can help to boost your credit score. This platform sounds amazing, right? Well, this platform is called Moneyhub, which you can download for free by tapping the link in my description. You get access to premium features free for 6 months, 6 whole months with no auto renew. And then if you decide that you love the app and the platform and you want to continue with premium features, then it will only cost you £1.49 per month. That is the deal of the century, right? Well, go and download the Moneyhub app right now.
Well, I wanted to understand from, your conversations, how with just with the employees that you've been around, what's like their hesitation with putting money aside into a pension? Why do they feel like, I don't want to put in £100. I'd rather just use it on other things?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there's loads of different reasons why people choose not to invest in their pension, right? For some people, they don't really understand it, so they don't value it.
Yeah.
It's just a problem for tomorrow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some people right now just don't feel like they can afford it. I have a really good friend who told me that she has stopped investing in her pension because actually cost of living has gotten so expensive and cost of childcare has gotten so expensive that right now she's prioritizing taking that extra salary income in each month so that she can pay for childcare.
Yeah.
Now, I think that's a really difficult choice for anybody to be making. And, what makes me sad about that conversation is, first of all, not only is she giving up future kind of value in the investment she's making in her pension, but she's compounding some of the negative things that we hear about. There's a huge gender pension gap.
Yeah.
Huge.
Is there? Okay.
Huge.
Wow.
So even look at the age profile of like 30s, it's about 13% in terms of the pension gap between men and women. Difference.
Wow.
It goes up beyond 40% when you get into your 50s. And why is that?
40.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of been driven by the fact that women occupy more lower paid jobs. So over time, they're not putting as much in as men. So, naturally, it doesn't grow as large as what a man may be able to put in. But there's also this really important point that like women are more likely to be taking time out of work. So they have gaps in their pension contribution history. They may find themselves on statutory maternity pay for a period where they're not able to keep up pension payments because they're just don't have enough money.
Wow.
So, there's lots of different factors. But so I suppose my reflection is that I think it's really difficult for people when they're in those kinds of choices. But I think the thing I would say is that every time I've talked to somebody about their pension and I've explained how it works and what they can get back in terms of value, they've kind of had the same reaction as you. Like,
yes.
Oh, why has no one ever told me this before? I don't feel like this has ever been explained properly. And gosh, if I'd known that, I would have acted differently. So you see, I think there's a pattern here.
Yeah.
And I really think that we have a huge opportunity to help as many people as possible who are in work really get to grips with what on earth a pension is and help them just really get real about why it's like so important that you think about it as early as possible. Yeah.
I feel like they're not being enabled to make informed decisions. Right, they're not making decisions with all the information available. If they said after they had a conversation with you, look, still, Carla, regardless of the benefits, I now understand that I'm not going to invest in my pension. And fair enough. But a lot of them just don't know. They don't know that they're losing out on all of these benefits. They just think, it's something for old people. I don't care about it. That's it. Whatever.
I think you're right. And I think let's just, to be fair to the other side, which in this case is the employer population, I guess, a couple of things I would say. Employers will give you lots of paper and documentation about your pension.
Yes.
I'm sure you have received.
Yes, I receive all.
I've had lots of documentation in the post. Yes. I think there's this kind of like weird gap where you're bombarded with legal documentation, which most people find really hard to read. Yeah. Like, as we've both studied law, we've probably been educated on how to read that type of language. Even I find it difficult sometimes looking at it, and I'm just like, why is this in such complicated language? Doesn't need to be. Could be a whole lot simpler. And, frankly, I mean, I've done this myself. You receive like your annual pension statement in the post. How often do you really read it? Do you just put it away and file it with some important documents? Do you even open it? We're out of a practice of having meaningful conversations about money, full stop. So to have a meaningful conversation about pensions is quite hard when we're coming from a really low base.
Yes, it's true.
So, and I think for employers, here's some stuff I've heard from employers. We're worried about giving advice, which, they have to be very careful. We don't want to be seen to be giving financial advice. We're worried we don't have all the answers. We're worried we'll get loads of questions and won't know how to deal with it. We've got a really small team. We can't handle all these inquiries, but we've got a pension provider. Surely they're better placed to tell you, right? Okay. So those are some of the reasons why I think there's a hesitancy to really have an open, honest conversation about how pensions work. But for all the reasons we've just talked about, I mean, I think it's time for that to end. And, that's what I'm trying to do with Wealthbrite. We'll say to people in work, look, let us have that conversation. If you're nervous, anxious, or worried about having it, let us deliver it. We'll come in, we give independent education. We've got no hidden agenda. We're not here selling a pension. We're not here selling any financial products. We're literally here to do exactly like you said, give people the information so that they can go away and make their own choices. Yeah.
Yep, I think that's definitely very needed. It needs to be an informed decision because it's such a huge, it could have such a huge impact on your life. I've spoken to so many people that are just like, I don't invest in my pension, I opt out. I mean, I remember when I was young, I wanted to opt out as well. I was like, what is this? Yeah. And I've been working since 17. Yeah. So I've been working for a long time. Right. So imagine you're working from that age and that's the sort of perception you have. You get into your 20s, you're just gonna be like, what is this? I don't need this. So yeah, it's very interesting. I wanted to run a hypothetical situation with you. So imagine you had a 20-year-old and they were like earning about 35k, very lucky 20-year-old. And they wanted to earn that same amount by retirement age, which is it 67 or 68?
It's 68 for me, so I guess let's assume it's the same.
Okay, let's assume it's 68. Oh my God, it's gone off.
Well,
again.
That's the state pension. Okay. You can take a workplace pension earlier for the most part, so you might be able to take.
What's that? 65? Is it?
You can probably take it even earlier in some places. Yeah, I think you can go as low as 57.
Yes. Okay, I've seen. Okay, let's go base. Let's do 68.
Yeah.
So say they wanted to earn 35k as their pension at the age of 68, and they're 20 now, right? So they've got about 48 years. How much would they need to be put in roughly to be able to earn that amount?
Yeah, so you're going to hate me because I'm not going to give you a number.
Okay, cool.
Here's why I'm not going to give you a number.
Fine.
Right. The reason I'm not going to give you a definite number is because I think it depends.
Okay.
So it depends on a few things.
Yeah.
First of all, is that person going to stay earning 35k for the rest of their life?
That's very true.
So they might put in less in their early years because they're on a lower salary, but they might get promoted. Yeah. They might find themselves in a job earning 50k, in which case they could and, might want to put more in. Yeah. And let's say in some year they get a big bonus. Let's imagine they're a salesperson and they get a huge bonus in 1 year. Now they might be tempted to just go and, splurge and have a bit of party time with that bonus. But actually thinking about how to use big one-off payments like that could be really smart. Okay. You might decide to put some of that in your pension. Okay. So again, that's going to be like a one-off payment above what you would do on a monthly basis. And then I think we've got to just be open about the fact that if you're investing, your money can go up as well as down.
Yep. Very true.
So, you know, people might think about investing right now and they'll say, are you crazy? Have you seen what's happening in the world? Stock market crash. My goodness, things are going. Why on earth would you invest right now? And I saw a great post someone had did on Instagram earlier today, and they said, okay, well, if you were to look at a snapshot of the market right now, yeah, you might sort of go, jeepers, things are going down, right?
Yeah.
But if you zoom out over sort of like 10, 20 years, it's only an upward trajectory.
Yeah.
Now, of course, it moves up and down throughout that, right? But I think what I want to share here by telling that story is that I don't think people should look at it and say, well, I have to put in a fixed amount always for the rest of my life to get that earned income. I think that what they need to do is to say, okay, well, this is my aspiration. This is when I want to retire, and this is how much I want to earn. If I can only put in £100 a month, let's say, for the rest of my working age, how much is that going to give me?
Yeah.
Is that enough?
Okay. That's a good way to look at it.
Is that enough? Like, let's work on that first and say, what does that give me back in terms of total asset value? How much does that give me? Because your asset value needs to be large enough to give you an annual income for as long as you think you'll need it. Okay. It's the other thing I think people, I don't know, we're kind of getting into lots of different parts of the puzzle when it comes to retirement and pensions. But let's imagine you say you want to retire at 60. Yeah, that's a great aspirational goal. I mean, we are living in a world where we are probably going to be lucky enough to live to at least 90, maybe even 100. So if you want 30 grand or 35 grand a year, that means you have to have enough asset value to last from age 60 all the way until your older age, right? And you might say, okay, well, I'm probably not going to be spending 35 grand if I'm like 96. But you might be.
Yeah, you could.
It's not just about reaching that retirement age. It's also about thinking about, well, how long do I expect to, you know, want that amount of money? Do I have family commitments? You know, am I going to have to look after a family member? Thinking about, you know, what do you want to have from the life that you're going to lead post 60? And you know, we're going to be around for a lot longer than our grandparents were, or maybe even our parents. So that means, unfortunately for us, we're probably going to have to invest and save a bit longer, right? Which is why it's even more important to start as soon as possible. Yes. So your 20-year-old definitely should start ASAP.
Just start ASAP.
You know, they won't be able to won't be auto enrolled.
Yes,
but they can choose to invest in a workplace pension.
Okay,
so you won't be automatically enrolled, but you can choose and tell your employer, hey, I want to be part of this workplace pension.
Wow, that would be a smart 20-year-old, right?
Yeah, well, exactly. But this is why I think we need to get the message out, and it's great to be able to talk to you about it.
No, it's been that's great. Okay. That makes sense. I wanted to understand as well, because I've seen a few posts around this, you know, not avoiding tax, but trying to be as tax efficient as possible. So you mentioned the bonus before, and I know I don't want to get crazy technical, but so we obviously, I don't even remember what the 40% threshold is anymore. Sorry, I'm slacking here. So imagine you get a bonus and that takes you over the threshold. Does it? Or sorry, let me ask you two questions. Your salary is hitting, part of your salary is hitting the 40% threshold. Yeah. But you can put that into
your pension.
Into a pension, right?
Yeah.
What's the most tax efficient way, or the best way to make sure that, you know, you're paying as little tax as possible, but you're also contributing a decent amount, but you're not like taking too much of your salary away?
Okay, so I suppose let me just answer. I think there's a few parts of your question. So, what's the most tax efficient way of investing in your pension? So you get tax relief on pension contributions regardless of how you invest, right? Okay. So if it's done, so let me just repeat that, because I feel like it's a really important thing for people to hear. You get tax relief on your pension contributions regardless of how you invest in your pension, which means anyone who invests in their pension is entitled to tax relief on their pension. What does tax relief mean? It means the money that you would have paid in tax gets put in, you get it back, right? Okay. So if you're doing it via salary sacrifice, which is your employer is taking that money and putting it into your pension before you even receive your take-home pay, right?
Okay.
Then the tax relief, if you're at 20% tax relief, is automatically like done for you. That's calculated and done for you. You don't need to worry about that.
Okay.
If you're a 40% tax earner, and the threshold is £50,270 at the minute. So if you're earning over that amount, then again, if your salary sacrifice, sorted for you.
Okay.
If you're not in a salary sacrifice regime because your employer doesn't operate their pension like that, then you have to claim that tax relief.
Okay.
So you have to claim it by doing like a self-assessment or telling HMRC about it, right? Same thing if you're self-employed and you're putting money into your own SIP, so a self-invested pension, then you need to claim your tax relief when you fill in your tax return at the end of the year. So you'll see in the tax return self-assessment, there's a section for you to put in your tax, your pension contributions, money that you've put into a pension. And they basically use that to work out what the tax relief would be that you're entitled to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I think that's an important point to say.
Yeah.
You know, and we have quite a generous tax allowance in the UK as regards pensions. So you can actually put in £40,000 a year into your pension.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah. I mean, don't know anyone who puts that much money into a pension, frankly. But the point is that none of us are going to, like, very few of us are going to tap out at the top end of that, right?
Yeah.
So it's just another incentive. Like, you know, we've got it. Why not take advantage of it? I think to then answer your question, which is a really interesting one, which is, can you use pensions as a really smart way to both invest in your future savings, but also reduce the overall amount of tax that you're paying? The answer is yes. So if you were to receive a bonus that flipped you over £50,000, you can actually tell your employer, don't pay me that bonus. I'd like to put it into my pension, or put part of it in my pension. You can work out how much do I need to sacrifice to get me below the threshold again, right? If I just want to be at like 4,999, how much do I have to put away, right? So it's like something like I need to sacrifice about 350 quid, or 380 quid. Sorry, I should say. So, you know, you tell your employer, hey, I want to sacrifice 380 quid into my pension, and that brings you back beneath the threshold. So now not only have you put money into your pension and got tax relief on that, you've also, as we've just said, avoided having to pay 40% tax on that amount. Now, that's one really great thing to be aware of. The other place I've seen this come up recently quite a lot is for parents who are getting child benefits.
Oh.
Because child benefits, if you reach earnings of over £50,000, you have to basically start paying back the child benefit, right? Or it gets reduced. So actually, again, if you think your salary is going to go over that threshold, saving into your pension, not only could you save for your future, get tax relief on that investment contribution, but you can actually retain the full value of your child benefits. Wow. Something not a lot of people know about. And I hear quite a lot from people who have said, oh, I didn't know I was going to trip over, and I got a letter from HMRC saying I owe them money back. So it came as a bit of a shock.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
Yeah, it's mad. Yeah. So yeah, no, pensions can be a really valuable way of like thinking about saving tax. It gets even bigger when you move up the pay scales. If you're somebody who's lucky enough to be earning over 100 grand.
Yeah.
So the way the tax rules work, between 100,000 and 125,000 pounds, you start to lose the personal allowance.
Yeah.
So the personal allowance is basically the amount of money you can earn tax-free. Because you're losing that, what it means is if you're on an earnings between that those two numbers, so 100 to 125, you're actually paying an effective tax rate of 60% on your income. So you're paying a whole lot more than everybody else, right? Because you've got this combined effect of being at 40% and losing the personal allowance. Yeah. So again, if you're in that category, you might want to think about making some extra pension contributions to bring you back under the 100K threshold. Because not only do you then save on this almost like penal rate of taxation, but you're also then boosting the amount of money that you're putting into your pension.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, those on over 100K, we always say, but they need to get themselves financial advice.
Well,
Is that right?
Well, do you know, it's a funny thing because, again, like, you're absolutely right. People think, wow, I've made it. Look at me. I'm on
Six figures.
I'm on six figures.
Yeah.
I'm doing well for myself. But they might not realize
Yeah.
that there are these sort of set of rules that come into play, which suddenly means, actually, if they're not really aware of it and thinking about it and acting on it, they could be losing out in the long run.
Yeah. Wow. It's crazy. I wanted to ask you, this was one of my final questions. So in terms of pensions, what are the ways you can contribute to it via a workplace pension? So
How do you mean?
So you've got the okay. So I'll tell you what I mean here. So you've got the auto enrollment plan. So when you start a new company, you say above 22, but maybe some companies may do it below 22, but it's legally it's above 22.
Exactly.
Yeah. So they'll put you onto it. So my company, what they did, right? They actually sent me out forms, and then I think they said that they would auto enroll me, but they gave me the opportunity up front for me to opt out.
Yeah.
And they also told me if I wanted to, they told me what the default rate would be, and if I wanted to do more or less or whatever, and how much they would contribute. Then I got another thing from them about salary sacrifice, which we've just mentioned now. So the reason why I was asking is because I know about the auto enrollment.
Yeah.
And then I know at the end of the year as well, sometimes before you get your bonus, they say, okay, instead of us giving it to you, do you want to contribute to your pension? Is there any other ways aside from those two avenues? Because one's like a consistent automated way, and one's like a one-off. If I
that's
do it
pretty
here.
much it. I mean, I think, I'm really impressed that your employer emailed you to say, like, hey, do you want to put your bonus in?
They're quite good, actually.
I've never had that email from any of my employers.
They're good. They're even changing how they're doing it. They're saying they're doing it as salary sacrifice and explaining everything to us. So they're good,
So that's great. I think those are the two ways, right? You either have your consistent monthly contribution that you're making, or you have these one-off events. Now, I suppose there's no reason why a one-off event has to be limited to bonus, right?
Yes.
You might choose to change the amount that you put in. Let's imagine you get a pay rise, and you suddenly find yourself going up in terms of the total amount that you're getting each month. Then you might choose to change your monthly contributions. So it's just about basically trying to think about times in your sort of annual cycle at work where maybe it makes sense for you to think about your pension. I think the main ones are, is there a pay rise, or do you have you actually signed up for monthly contributions? Looking at it again, if you do get a pay rise, it's always a good thing to do. We talk about lifestyle inflation a lot. And it might be tempting to get a pay rise and not think about changing your pension contributions, but that might be a really good thing to do, because, if it comes out before you get your take-home pay, you won't miss it.
Yes.
But yeah, then the one-off payments, like you said, with the bonus are probably the other main way.
Okay. Great. I've been learning a lot more about pensions deliberately, and also through, like I said, through my employer as well. So it's very, very interesting. In terms of, just wanted to touch, because you mentioned the cost of living crisis. What are your thoughts on that? Now that I've got you on the episode anyway, I haven't had a chance to discuss it with many people, but what's your thoughts? Because we have a situation where in October it's going to increase more than has been forecasted. I think it's almost 3,000 a year. I think it's going to go up to
energy bills.
Yes, for energy bills. Yeah, everything else.
I think it's. So I guess, what do I think about it? It's really tough for people, right? Tough for everyone, actually. I think it's forcing everybody to think about money in a way they probably haven't done before. I'm seeing that because I'm talking to businesses about their people. And when we send out our surveys to get a sense of, what do their employees think about at the moment, cost of living crisis is the number one financial concern, right? Everybody is thinking and talking about money at the minute. So people are crying out for like guidance and support and help at the minute to say, how am I going to get through this? How am I managing, right? I guess what I would say to those people is a couple of things. One, you're not alone. This really is something that's impacting everyone, albeit not everybody is going to be impacted to the same extent. But it means that, you know, actually, I think for one of the very few occasions where actually we're all feeling the same things, everybody's appalled that the energy bills are going up this month. Everybody's like, are you crazy? Yeah. Have you seen this? How on earth am I supposed to pay this? I think the other thing I would say, which I guess isn't, for some people, they might say, okay, well, it doesn't really change my day-to-day existence, but actually it's about the mindset we adopt. So, you know, I'm a big believer in giving this advice, even though I'm not always great at following it, which is knowing the difference between the things you can control and the things that you can't. And kind of trying to let go of the anxieties and the stress around things that you cannot change, right? So in the context of the cost of living crisis, I cannot change what's happening in the global economic environment. Right. So if things are going to change and they're going to get worse, there's nothing I can do about that. I cannot change how our government chooses to respond to that crisis. Well, I can write to my MP, which I do regularly. Sent one today.
Oh, nice. I hope this is a good response.
We're recording this on the day that Boris Johnson is facing a no.
Yes, I know. I'm going to hear that on the radio back.
So I
my drive,
sent my MP a letter telling him what I think he should do when he takes the vote.
Okay.
But yeah, so I mean, I think, you know, acknowledging these things that we just have no control over, and trying not to let stress and anxiety around those things consume us. Because like we're going to have to expend a lot of energy focusing on the things we can do things about. It's no good wasting it on stuff we can't do anything about.
I agree. I love that advice.
Yeah.
It's tough though, but I love that advice.
As I say, I'm not always great at taking it, but I am trying really hard to get into a practice where I just try and really like write down like what is it that's in my control and really try and focus hard on that and kind of try and forget and block out the noise of everything else, you know. And again, like I say here, you know, listening to podcasts like this, maybe you're watching online videos, maybe you're speaking to your employer actually about, you know, ways for you to get better at money management if that's the part of the puzzle that you need to focus on right now. Most people I meet aren't super hot on budgeting.
Budgeting.
Cost of living
so
right now,
so
important. Exactly. It is boring for a lot of people, but there's never been more of an important time to do it than now, right?
Yes.
If you don't know what's coming in and you don't know what's coming out, it's really hard to feel in control. It's really hard to feel in control.
It is.
And I know, I mean, I did a bit of a review of my budget recently and I spotted at least 2 subscriptions that I had failed to cancel, which I thought I had cancelled.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, stuff like that, which, you know, it sneaks through.
And it does,
you're
if
like,
you don't check.
Oh, hey, I spent $12.99 on a subscription that I forgot to cancel. Because I wanted to use their 30-day free trial.
That's the thing, right? That's how they,
you know, we all do it. So that's why it's important, not even just to do these things once, but to actually make them habits. So yeah, that would be my thoughts on the cost of living crisis.
Okay. No, great. No, it's definitely a tough time. I think, like you said, we're all definitely feeling it. Especially like, you know, even like petrol, everything is going through the roof. It's just crazy. Like, it's just not like one area, it's like all areas. It's just going through the roof. I mean, petrol, I thought at some point it was just going to start going back down.
Me too.
But I mean, it's more than, it's gone up more than when they announced the fuel duty cut. And I was just like, this is crazy. What's the point of it? It's like, it's so much higher than it was then. It just seems to just, you know, I haven't researched much into it to understand why. I know they say Russia, but I don't know. It's just a little bit like
No, I think a lot of it comes from the fact that we've got huge demand and a lack of supply arising.
Do you think that?
I do think a lot of it is coming from that. So I don't think it's all of it. So I think we've got a situation where I think even like, okay, what do I think is going on in the UK? Post-COVID, we still haven't recovered.
Yes.
Let's get real about post-Brexit.
Yeah, Brexit came at the wrong time, unfortunately.
COVID, Brexit, both of them together, really bad for our economy.
Yeah.
I think both of those things mean that we've struggled with getting like the economy moving again. You know, I think the fact that the war in Ukraine is ongoing means that there is even more demand on energy, and energy prices are the number one thing that's going up. But it's not just that; it's like food supply and food shortages, right? I mean, you know, I didn't know that Ukraine was like the breadbasket of Europe until this started. You know, sunflower oil and wheat. I had no idea that those two products were like sourced from Ukraine.
I had no clue.
No idea. And so I guess it's just then the knock-on consequences of all of those things. If you can't get products moved across borders easily because of a war, that's one thing. Then you can't get product moved across borders because we have a lack of workers who are willing to drive because of Brexit, because our economy, you know, it's like all these things compounding on top of each other. So it's all adding up into a pretty painful economic environment. And then, you know, the government has at its levers a few different tools to try and like pull the brakes on what's happening. One of which is running away with the high inflation, right? So they try and pull the brake by putting up interest rates. Why do they do that? Because they're trying to force people to, you know, basically what you don't want to do is necessarily get people spending lots of money in the market again, because all that does is put pressure on demand and supply again. So they're trying to put the brakes on people doing that by keeping interest rates high, which forces people to save, forces people to spend less, right? But the risk is you end up contracting. And you know what the recession forces a recession. And you know, I'm definitely not in the business of making economic predictions. I'm not an economist by my trade. But you know, having learned a lot around this because of what we're doing, you know, it's just you know, again, I don't know that this is any comfort to people particularly, but these are economic cycles, right? These things happen. We have lived through a period of relative boom for a very long time.
Yes, we have.
I mean, and I say it's a very long time, but I remember the 2008 financial crash.
Yeah, I heard about it. I think I was in college at that time.
So I was trying to get a job that year. And it was pretty tough. The job market, people basically weren't taking any. I'd come out of uni, finished my degree, and basically it was really hard trying to find a job because nobody wanted to take anyone on because they were all worried about the economy. And I think, you know, being aware of the fact that, again, as I said, you've got to take a long-term view with how these things are going, that we are going through a period of correction after what has been relatively high growth phase, right? But I suppose the good news is that they don't last forever.
No, shouldn't last forever.
I mean, so again, I guess it's something about mindset and attitude. We can't change directly how long this is going to last for. It probably will be painful for a while longer, which means painful for a lot of people on a day-to-day basis, which can feel like an eternity, even if it doesn't actually last forever. So I think it's just about, you know, what would I encourage people to do? Come back to what we just said before, is that trying to adopt a mindset of focusing on what you can control, talking to people, right? Problem shared is a problem halved. Really is, though. And I think as well right now, like we are all talking about money, we're all thinking about it. It's probably one of the few times that if you opened up with a mate and said, I'm kind of worried about how we're going to make it through, you wouldn't be met with silence. You know, actually people are going to really be responsive. And you might, between yourselves, actually learn something and be able to help and support each other. Right. So I think for me, that's what this is all about, trying to like get the message out and encourage people to learn and to try and just even adopt even one thing in their own lives that can like help them on their way. Man. It's definitely a crazy time, and like you said, it seems like we may have some painful times ahead. But I agree with your advice. I think it's just doing what you can control and not forgetting what you can't control, but try to not let it affect you as much. It's been great speaking to you today. It's been such an amazing and insightful conversation. I learned a lot from our conversation. I wanted to know, where can people find you? Yeah, sure. So on Instagram under the handle @Wealthbrite, And on our website, it's wealthbrite.co.uk. And, you know, if you like what you've heard today and you think, hey, I wish somebody would come into my work and tell us a bit more about it, then you can reach out to me on the website directly, or as I said, through Instagram, or, you know, feel free. People can link up with me on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to talk. But yeah.
Awesome. What have you got planned next?
Today or?
Oh, generally. With Wealthbrite and
world domination, obviously. What's next? We're actually gearing up for a series of graduate in training programs.
Wow.
So in September, I'm going to be running a number of training programs for new graduates. First jobs. We're going to do a pilot program over like 6 to 8 weeks with a few different businesses. And basically, we're going to do that piece of the puzzle that I always wished I had, which was, hey, you've got a new job. Here's what you need to know about your pay and your benefits. And here are things you might want to think about doing now to set yourself up for the future.
Wow. Fantastic. I'm going to be keeping my eyes close to that to see how that goes. And hopefully we can have a conversation about that. It's been great having you.
Thank you.
Have you got any final words for the listeners and watchers?
Just to say thanks very much. I've really enjoyed the conversation. And, you know, like I say, you know, for me, this is just a really great chance to talk a bit more about one of those things we can all be doing to kind of find our own financial freedom, I should say, and financial well-being. That's what this is all about.
Yes.
So thanks very much.
No, welcome. No, thank you for, you know, spending time with us and giving us and providing us so much value. The listeners are going to be very, very, very pleased. I hope listeners that you've enjoyed this episode of the podcast. You know, always bring great guests, and Carla has been a great guest today. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of the Takeoff Podcast, and we'll see you next week.